Good morning everybody, and welcome back to a brand new video. Now today I want to show you a few really interesting training methods. Now just to get this out of the way, no, these are not going to be meta methods, but just kind of interesting alternative training methods. Sure, they might be kind of weird, but honestly I think they're a good option. As always, if you enjoy these types of videos, don't forget to leave the video a like. I'll do a jumping jack for every like I get. Maybe. Anyway, let's get started. Alright, now to start things off here, we're going to go with a spicy one here, and that one is actually in the wilderness. Now, the Vigor's Chain Mace is a very underutilized weapon, and for good reason. It's not that useful in a lot of circumstances. But with that said though, there is a really interesting training method, and that is killing Ankous in the wilderness with the Vigor's Chain Mace and the Salve Amulet E. Now the Salve Amulet does give you an extra 20% against any undead creature, which an Ankous is. And that does of course stack with the Vigor's Chain Mace, which gives you an additional 50% accuracy and damage. Now to go along with that, I brought an additional 2 items as a risk. We're bringing a Defender. The Avernic Defender, I have double checked. You do keep this on death, but I would have preferred to bring a Dragon Defender. And we're going to bring the Berserker Ring Eye. Let's pray to God that Jagex has got this items kept on death thing right now. Otherwise, I am about to be very sad. Okay, so obviously you don't need an Avernic. You could of course bring a Dragonfire Shield, a Dragon Defender, or really anything else in the offhand slot. We're bringing Proselyte just to give us the highest prayer bonus possible, because we are going to be praying Piety and Protect from melee. We're bringing Rune Gloves and Climbing Boots because they are very cost effective. A Helm of Needasnot is a very cheap strength bonus. Arjun Cloak 3 for a little more prayer bonus. The Salve Amulet, of course, and the Vigor's Chain Mace. Okay, so just to confirm, our risk on paper is around 274k, but we do have to keep in mind we do have Ether in the Chain Mace, which means we could lose up to 1500 of them, which is about an extra 200k. Unfortunately, there is no getting around that though. And one final thing, of course, make sure your player attack options are off or hidden, because you definitely do not want to be accidentally attacking a player dressed in an Ankous costume. That would be very unfortunate. Now, in my opinion, there are 2 viable areas to kill Ankous in the wilderness, the best one being the Wilderness Slayer Cave, which we're going to try out first. This is the higher risk location because PKers do come here fairly often, and it is in multi. Now with that said, it's definitely not the busiest PKing spot. I didn't have any issues coming here for about 20 or 30 minutes testing this out. Now it's pretty simple. All you're going to do is run around with Piety and Protect from melee on and just destroy the Ankous. I'm pretty sure my max hit is like a 70 with the Vigor's Chain Mace, which is pretty crazy. I would highly recommend using Piety and a Divine Super Combat, because at this point you are risking a fair bit. You're in the wilderness, you may as well be getting the highest experience rate possible. Now as far as I'm aware, this is actually one of the best combat training methods that doesn't involve using an alt account. And as long as you are paying attention, you can teleport directly out of here with either a Royal Seed Pod or a piece of Dragonstone jewelry. So sure, it is a little dangerous, but if you know what you're doing, you should be able to escape fairly often. Now this location is ideal because the Ankous are much closer together. They are also higher level Ankous, which means they have more hit points, which means overall you're going to get a lot more XP per hour. Now I managed to consistently get around 160k per hour strength experience, although I was actually pushing even 165k at certain points. It does require a fairly high amount of focus. You do want to definitely click on each Ankous as soon as it dies. That will get you the highest experience rate possible. Okay, so we finished off our test here. We can teleport right out with the Seed Pod, and we managed to get around 160k per hour with a high amount of focus, which is one of the best combat training methods in the entire game. It's definitely better than Nightmare Zone, although it requires more risk and costs quite a bit more per hour. Now, if you wanted an option that was a bit less risky, you could also think of going to the Forgotten Cemetery. Now, this is also in a fairly low-level wilderness, so you can teleport directly out with the Grand Seed Pod. Now, the Forgotten Cemetery is in single combat, which means it's a lot safer. You're not going to get piled on by a bunch of people. But it does have a couple drawbacks. For one, the Ankous are lower level, which means they have less hit points. Also, there are skeletons and ghosts that are walking around, and while those are also undead, they have very little hit points. So it is of course a bit of a trade-off. Here I was only getting around 130k per hour, maybe 135k at my peak, which while this is definitely one of the quickest combat training methods in the game, at this point I think there are other options that are much less click intensive and less risky. But still an interesting option. Now, if this next method sounds kind of dumb, that could be because it is. I have no idea if anyone's tried this before. Maybe I'm the first person to ever do this, who knows? Now, what we're going to be doing is making Slayer rings and then alching them. I think this could be kind of decent for Ironman, especially because all you really need is gold bars and nature runes. And for my initial calculations, you're going to get a bit of crafting experience, a bit of magic experience, and a couple 100k cash profit per hour. Honestly, this could even maybe be good for Ultimate Ironman. Anyway, I'll show you exactly how it works. Alright, so equipped, you're going to want to have graceful or other weight reducing equipment and a staff of fire. In your top left inventory, you want to have a ring mold and then also withdraw 12 gold bars. You can do it with 13 if you want to deposit your cash every time, kind of up to you. From here, we're going to run up to Crystalia, the Slayer Master, and then go ahead and buy 12 of the enchanted gems. From here, we're going to run down to the furnace, and we're going to go ahead and make those into Slayer rings. Okay, so we're going to wait here for a second to make all of our Slayer rings, and what makes this method good, or let's not say good, what makes this method work is the fact that Slayer rings actually have a high alch value of 600 GP, yet it only costs around 200 to craft them. Now after that, you're just going to go ahead and alch them all. Pretty simple. You can also kind of do this while you're running back to the bank. Now Slayer rings are kind of weird because they are not notable, which means you probably want to alch them before you put them in your bank. Otherwise, you're gonna have a bad time. Okay, so we just alched our whole inventory and we now have 8,000 GP. Go ahead and withdraw another 12 gold bars and we're just gonna repeat that. Now the enchanted gems do not restock that quickly, so after about 4 or 5 runs, you may have to actually go ahead and hop worlds, which is a little annoying, but it doesn't impact your experience rate too much. Now this method is also incredibly consistent because it's based on high alching, which means the GE price doesn't matter. The shop sells the enchanted gems at 1 GP each, so that's not a consideration. So essentially this method will always work even if the doomsday apocalypse economic collapse happens, you'll always be able to do this method. Now for requirements, this method does have one major one, and that is 75 crafting to be able to make Slayer rings. Beyond that, you're obviously going to need 55 magic for high alchemy, and you also need to have unlocked the Ring Bling perk. So how much money exactly are we going to be making per hour and how much experience? Well, it is fairly moderate. Now I do think there is room for improvement here, but at a fairly decent rate, I was getting around 42,000 experience per hour in magic, along with around 10,000 experience per hour in crafting. Now because you're only using gold bars and enchanted gems, your profit per alch comes out to around 350 GP, and at around 650 alchs per hour, that's around 225k in profit you're also making directly in cash. There's no need to go collect any resources, dragon hides, battle staves, whatnot. That's just pure profit, baby. Okay, yeah, sure, this method's not that great, but for Ironman, I think it actually could be somewhat viable. Okay, maybe it's not that good, but it is pretty cool. Alright, so next up here, I want to have a look at a really interesting method, one that I think is actually pretty viable. What it is an alternative to splashing. Now, a big shout out to a YouTuber by the name of Spellsey, who is the first person I learned this from. I'll link to their original video in the description, but essentially what it is a very AFK magic training method, and all it uses is chaos runes, and as most of you know now, chaos runes have become very cheap. Chaos runes right now are only 50 GP each, and that is all you're going to need. Now, casting the Firebolt spell with the Chaos Gauntlets is actually one of the most cost-effective. I think I'm confusing this guy right here. Now, the Chaos Gauntlets will increase the damage on your Firebolt spell by 3, giving you at least a max hit of 15. Now, the only other really required item for this method is the Mystic Smokestaff. That will keep this as cost-effective as possible. As the Firebolt spell does use air and fire runes, all you'll need per cast is 1 chaos rune, so it's 50 GP a cast. Now for the rest of your equipment, you're mainly just looking for high defensive gear. I'm bringing dragon boots, dragon plate legs, rune chain body, and a Farseer helm for defensive bonuses. In addition, we're going to get the occult necklace, the Book of Darkness, and the imbued Ceridome cape, which I think also gives me an extra max hit. Now the reason why we're trying to prioritize high defensive bonuses is because we're going to be using absorption potions, and the less damage that we take, the longer the absorption potions will last. Okay, so what you're looking for here is a full inventory of absorption potions in addition to your chaos runes and your locator orb. From here, you're going to come to Dominic and create a normal rumble dream, customizable rumble normal. Now after creating that, you want to make sure you have a certain number of bosses selected. There are quite a few different options here. Mainly you're looking for monsters that don't deal much damage but have as many hit points as possible. So we're going to go with the Trap Soul, Count Draenor, King Rauld, the Kendall, and the Khazard Warlord. From here we're just going to hit accept, and then we're going to run into the middle of the map. Now from here we're going to Locator Orb down to 1 HP. You can also use a Rock Cake if you don't have the Locator Orb unlocked. And then we're going to drink a bunch of Absorption Potions. Make sure you do that before they get here, or else you will get probably one shot. Now you can only have a maximum of 1,000 absorption hits stored at once, so once you're up to 1,000, that's all you need to do. Make sure Auto Retaliate is on, make sure you have your spell selected, which is going to be Firebolt, and that's it. You are now pretty much ready to AFK around 20 minutes at a time. You can even go further assuming that your absorption potions last, although it will become much less efficient. Now the reason you want your hit points to be as low as possible is because when you're only on 1 hit points, for example, you can only take 1 damage, which means you only take 1 point away from your absorption potions. Once you start regenerating to higher hit points, you're going to start taking more damage and your absorption potions are going to be burned through at a quicker rate. Now these monsters all have no magic defense, which means your magical accuracy is not that important. That's kind of why we can bring this really budget looking gear with the rune chain body, the dragon plate legs, and the dragon boots without really sacrificing any DPS. It really does not make much a difference, so what you want to do is prioritize having high melee defenses with the most magic damage, and you should be good to go. This method is the most AFK thing you can do in this game. All you need to do is interact with your game client once every 20 minutes and you're going to consistently get 45k magic experience per hour and around 12 or 13,000 hit points. Now we've determined to get around 45k per hour, but how much exactly does it cost? On average, you're going to get around 40 experience per cast, doing around 1100 casts per hour. Chaos runes are a measly 50 GP each, which means the GP to XP of this method is around 1.25, which is fairly inexpensive. If you did this all the way to 99 magic, at the current prices, it would only cost you around 15 to 20 mil, while being ridiculously AFK. Now before I go here, I want to give a massive thank you to all of my YouTube members. Thank you to Brian Robinson, Zach Stoppa, Cappy, Brad Sings, Ocelot, and Kush Patel for all subscribing at the Dragon tier. You guys are very generous, I really appreciate it. And also a big thank you to some new Runite tier members, William Fox, Timothy Chen, joining Birdbot, and Base Titch. As always guys, if you are looking for another way to support the channel, becoming a YouTube member is an awesome way to do so. You can become immortalized in my videos, get access to my video release schedule, and of course, get a custom Discord role. Anyway guys, thanks a lot, and I'll see you next time.